to be discerning of your will. So guide our conversation, calm our thoughts, and help us to rest in your will. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. We're picking up from where we left yesterday with regards to justice matters, and we are in the section on gender justice. The last proposal we had agreed by consensus was that we adopt the Declaration of Faith on Women's Ordination. We then went to proposal number 2, and we returned to that proposal. What I suggest we do is let's use the A part and the B part as two separate points. So if you would work with A with us first, Lisa.
Thank you, Mr. President. So, as I noted yesterday, there are two similar but different proposals, one from the Justice Task Force and one from the Women's Pre-Council. And so in looking at those two, we harmonized them, and that's what you're going to see on the screen and you have on your tables as well. And I will read that, and it hopefully can answer any questions we have about the changes here. Just to let you know that the underlined text is wording from the recommendation coming from the Women's Pre-Council. That the WCRC's Executive Committee and General Secretary develop a gender justice policy by 2019, and that they collaborate with the regional councils to foster and encourage the use of this policy as the practice of the whole communion of churches. This policy shall delineate issues of gender-based violence within church and society. It shall include an action plan for the implementation of the policy and accountability metrics.
Thank you, Lisa. I'm giving some time for the language interpreters to catch up with us. It was. Right. This is a suggested alternative in terms of the changes that have been made. So it comes to us as a strengthened proposal, trying to link up other points at different parts as well. So the proposal is before us. Can you indicate to me how you feel about it with your cards? Is there a blue card in the back? If you have a blue card, could you just see a blue card? Do you wish to speak? Microphone number 2.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm Hilary Hagar, Presbyterian Church in Canada. I'm a delegate and I'll be speaking English. Can I request that this be handed out in writing to the tables, because the proposal we have from yesterday is different than the one that's presented on the screen?
Lisa, you just want to explain that?
I believe that those were handed out as people were arriving. They were supposed to have been.
Could we have clarification from the stewards if the copies are available for the tables?
It was prepared in all of the languages on one sheet of paper.
Can I get a signal if those papers are in the room?
They were left with the stewards, Lisa?
That's my understanding. Yes, in fact, I saw them being couriered over.
And the new document is the one that has the blueprint?
Can I get a signal if those copies are in the room, please?
This is yours.
They don't have that. Yeah, this is mine.
Yes?
There they are.
They're being distributed. Thank you.
Thank you for bringing that to our attention.
If you don't, at least one person at your table can just raise your hand so that we know your table doesn't have it. It seems like most tables. We give a moment for that to happen. Yeah. As we prepare for people who are wanting to speak to any of these proposals, please be mindful that you need to state your name, the church you come from, the language you would speak in, and whether you are a delegate. The language part is very, very important because we need to give a signal to the interpreters to get ready to start speaking.
I noticed that the by 2019 isn't underlined. It said by 2020 and one 2019 and the other. So just in case of...
I'm just waiting for the distribution to take place. Okay, microphone number 2, you wish to speak.
Yes. My name is Maria Oppermann. I'm from the Reformed Church, Switzerland. I'm delegated. I make a general statement. In the listening session about gender justice, the words were powerful and encouraging, but there were only women on the stage. Only in our Bible study tomorrow, and it suggests that gender justice is a topic for women among women. But gender justice is not just a woman's issue. I expect that men also stand up and speak up for gender justice. Thank you, Yoshi Fujimori, for your voice in the morning. Thank you.
Thank you for your statement. Obviously, if you want to help strengthen our proposal that is before us, you're welcome to do that. Right. Is it been fully distributed? Number 1, what are you trying to signal? Stuart, you trying to say something? Number 1. Right, we all have a copy? Okay. So proposal 2 then is before us. Do you need us to go through it again? If you feel that we need to go through it again to catch up where we were, just give me an indication with your cards. All right. Let's do it again. I'm not sure what we say. Lisa, take us back through it quickly.
That the WCRC's Executive Committee and General Secretary develop a gender justice policy by 2019, and that they collaborate with the regional councils to foster and encourage the use of this policy as the practice of the whole communion of churches. This policy shall delineate issues of gender-based violence within church and society. It shall include an action plan for the implementation of the policy and accountability metrics.
Thank you. It is before us. Can you share with us how you feel by indicating with your cards? I see only orange cards. It is agreed by consensus unanimously. All right.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Next one.
The second part of that then is now what is in underline on the copy from yesterday's report. And it says that the WCRC Executive Committee and senior staff should represent the communion's commitment to gender justice and shall be at least 50% female by the next General Council.
The proposal is before us. Can you share how you feel about it with your cards? I see a blue card if you wish to speak.
Trevor Gribben, the Presbyterian Church in Ireland, speaking in English. Whilst very sympathetic with the principle of this proposal, the logistics are somewhat challenging to us as a communion. Does that mean that some staff members may have to resign before next council so that by next council 50% can be male and female? There's also the question of justice with regard to employment law for current post holders. So with regard to staffing, how will this issue work out, and is it really meant to be implemented by next council or after next council?
If I may remind the body that yesterday, as I was delivering comments about this, we had said that there were at least 4 groups that brought this forward, and it was pretty much word for word. So that's the reason we bring it to you in this form, but certainly the body can alter that in some way if they so desire.
Okay, leave it. All right. The proposal is before us unless there is any words to strengthen it or improve on it. Yeah. I'm just going to go to microphone number 3. We're standing there before you. Can you speak?
I'm Lau Fachai from Northeast India, and I'm a delegate. My concern is if we specifically mention 50%, we are going to mathematical equality, which may be a dangerous trend we are going. Our equality should not be measured in mathematical way, but if we have more women, let it be. Only one man, 90% women, it's okay. But if we say 50-50, we are going to mathematical equality. So I have a reservation of this specifically mentioning 50%, Mr. President.
Thank you for that. Let's go back to number 2.
Mr. President, Trevor Gribben, Presbyterian Church in Ireland. Could I ask then whoever guides this council legally, be it the General Secretary, to give us guidance about a requirement that would require 50% of the senior staff, at least 50%, to be female by the next council. People may be in posts. Do their contracts run longer than the next council? Can this happen for the sake of justice in employment matters? Could we have guidance before we vote as a council?
Okay, Chris.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. The question, the concrete question is that there will be, in terms of senior staff, the General Secretary's term is 7 years. The other executive secretaries are 5 years. So in the period between now and the next General Council, there will be people whose terms will have come to an end. The provisions of their contracts is that they would be eligible, not guaranteed, simply eligible for 2 terms. But in terms of from a contractual point of view, it is clear that the contractual elements would be that people, they couldn't affect people's current terms. I don't know, Trevor, if that's helpful, but that's what we have. Yeah.
Okay, with that information, I'm going to test it again. Let's just see how you feel about it, the proposal as it stands. All right, I see one blue card on the far end. Do you wish to speak? I'm looking for suggestions to improve the proposal, not just comments. It would be helpful.
John Collins, United Reformed Church, a delegate speaking in English. While I agree with the idea of looking at females, I do feel that discriminates against men when they apply, and certainly in British law it would be illegal to employ someone based on their gender. By positive discrimination is negative discrimination against someone else, and we should aim to be totally free from discrimination. And I wonder whether it would be legal to have this under employment law in Germany.
Okay, you're asking a question. Is there anybody able to answer the question? Chris, are you able to give some guidance on that? the legality aspect, particularly in Germany?
I think that these are good questions. I think that's right. Simply to state a requirement for a job requires having people that are qualified to do the job all being considered equally. But at the same time, there's a goal being expressed here about the nature of the communion. One of the things I'm noting is that maybe the discomfort is if this was stated in more goal or principle language, it may avoid legal technicalities. There is certainly clarity of what's wanting to be accomplished here. I think what I'm hearing is that if it's expressed like this, and it's true, so to answer the question more directly, it would probably be wise to get a legal opinion if somebody is raising that with us. But the goal language here could be something that could be affirmed.
Mr. President, if I may, just to make a comment, that there were a couple of ways to look at this proposal. One is to look at it that it separates that the executive committee should be 50-50 and that senior staff should be 50-50. But the way it's written, it appears that it's the combination thereof. So I don't know if that changes a bit what it means, but I just wanted to say that that conversation was also going on.
Let me check on that one. How would you feel about separating the two? Give me an indication with your cards. There's a request we could consider is to separate the 2 points, the one for the executive staff, the senior staff, and the rest. Would you like us to consider that? Let me see. Anybody with a blue card wishes to speak? No? All right. There. Yes, please speak. Microphone number 3.
Younger Tatex from the Protestant Church. I'm a delegate. Mr. President, perhaps we could bring this proposal to the ExCom, also because the ExCom is going about staff members, at least the secretaries, and that we change this proposal in that the Council strong advises that at least 50% are female at the next General Council, and that we bring this to the ExCom.
You are suggesting that this proposal goes to the Executive Committee?
That this proposal goes to the ExCom, and that it is said that the Council strongly wants that 50% of the staff is, and at least 50% is female by the next General Council.
How do you respond to that? How do you feel about that? That this goes to the Executive Committee to work on. I see blue cards. You wish to speak? Any person with a blue card wishes to speak? Yes, please speak. Microphone number 3.
My name is Gonho Lee. I'm Presbyterian Church USA delegate speaking English. If the legal issue is the matter, we can wait and vote later. But if you take our right to vote for this gender policy to executive committee, I think this is not the right move. And second, we try to separate executive committee composition and the staff. The same principle should apply. I do know there are so-called, when you screen people, you think certain sex is better than other sex. It depends on the situation. But what we need is real gender justice, gender equity. Even the church has more female than male. So think about this carefully.
Okay, let me just let a person speak at number 4 and then you can do that. Number 4.
My name is Denise Leash from the Uniting Church in Australia, and I will be speaking in English. I wonder whether it might be helpful as a way to move forward to include an additional phrase, and that is subject to compliance with relevant employment law or legal restrictions. That might need to be reworded.
Thank you, that's very helpful. You want to speak? Because I still want to test what has been put on the floor.
You want to hear the legal opinion?
Yeah, there's a legal opinion apparently.
Thank you. Yes. So we have consulted with a member of our officers group who is a lawyer who then also consulted. He says that putting a percentage of females to be hired would not be legal. One could express the goal, but the goal cannot be mandated in percentages from a legal perspective in terms of German law.
With that piece of information, I'm going to return to the original proposal that has been put to us, the one that Lisa has read. I want to hear or get a feeling of how you feel about it. Please could you indicate with your cards with the information as far as legality is concerned. Please indicate with your cards. The proposal is on the screen. I see some blue cards. Would you wish to speak? Blue cards? Because basically what we're saying here now is that the legality is an issue. And it's problematic from a legal point of view. But there was a recommendation that came from the back. I want to test that one. We're looking at this one. The person in the back said subject to. Could you repeat what you said?
She's gone. That's it there. It wasn't me, but subject to compliance with relevant legal and employment laws. Mr. President, can I just remind people as well that the makeup of the executive committee is the people that are nominated, but according to the current constitution, the presidents or moderators of regional councils also have a vote on the executive committee, and they tend, because of the way that our church policies work, they tend to be male, and therefore there is almost inevitably an imbalance in favour of men by combining the executive committee and the senior staff. So I think it's too difficult for us to make a rule, but certainly it needs to be compliant with relevant legal and employment laws.
Okay, I'm pleased that it's been tested by a broader group of people at the General Council, so I think we'll proceed with that. Let's now look at the proposal that is on the screen with the additional words subject to compliance with relevant legal and employment laws. Could you give me an indication of how you feel about this? With your cards, please. One blue card, please. Can you speak? I see a few more blue cards there. Microphone number 2.
Bethany Wynn. I will be speaking in English. I am a delegate from the United Church of Christ in the States. I would respectfully suggest we accept it as it was previously written without the addition. It says that the committee and senior staff should represent this commitment, and it should. It doesn't say it's legally requiring or mandating.
Okay, thank you. Any further person with a blue card wishes to speak? All right.
Mr. President, may I just point out that there is a shall later on.
Okay. Microphone number 3.
Thank you, President. My name is Lungi Lempecheni from the Uniting Presbyterian Church in Southern Africa. And I'm a delegate. I'll speak in isiXhosa. President, that clause is problematic in that since we came here, we're dealing with the laws that are put by the empire to the church. And now we want to subject ourselves to the laws that are dictated to us by the empire. And therefore, which laws shall we abide by? which country will have to take precedence over all of us? I think we should drop that subject to compliance with relevant legal and employment laws. Otherwise, it's going to cause problem for us in the way we do business as the church. Thank you.
All right, I just want to test that. There's a suggestion now that we drop that additional words. Those who support that, let me get an indication of how you feel, that we drop subject to compliance. I see a lot of blues for that. All right, let's go to microphone number 4.
Mr. President, my name is Majid Abel. I'm from the Presbyterian Church of Pakistan. And I'm a delegate and I'll speak in English. Even though my English is not so good, in the proposal, the words "at least," and I may seem like speaking on behalf of men, that the proposal demanding justice and then at least shows that 50%, the demand is that can be more also, then the balance will be shifted on the other side. So I'm just proposing that least should be deleted.
Let me test that. How do you feel about deleting at least? I think there's more people saying no to that. Right, we're going to go back to the original one with the addition of the compliance part. Can we get that on the screen again? Now I want to test this again. As we have it on the screen, how do you feel about it? Please indicate. I see lesser blue cards. I want to ask the blue cards, because I think we have spoken about it. I want to ask the blue cards if you would give us consent to move on. Blue cards? Okay, microphone number 2.
Thank you, President. I would give consent. Stephen Kendall, Presbyterian Church in Canada, delegate. I would certainly give consent to move on. I regret that we don't preserve language of vigorously striving somehow to ensure at least 50%. What we have now is a goal of at least 50%, but then by adding subject to compliance with relevant legal and employment laws, and now knowing that they veto such an endeavor, we have lost the language. So another alternative would be to say, represent the Communion's commitment to gender justice and shall strive vigorously to be at least 50% female, so that at least that language somehow remains.
That language is suggesting an improvement and strengthening the text. I think if we can just give it to us. Could you just give it to us again? Let's see. I wonder if the people on the screen can help capture that for us. Thank you. Is that right, Stephen? As it is on the screen? All right. With this, let's test this and see how you feel about this. Can you give an indication with your cards? Thank you. I see only one blue card. Oh, there's another. Where's another blue card? If you have a blue card you wish to speak. No? No blue card wishes to speak? Is there somebody at microphone number 4? Yes, please go ahead.
Hi, my name's Caris. I'm a delegate from the Union of Welsh Independents, and I'll be speaking in English. So I see the problem is with the 50% and the legal things. So I was thinking that we could maybe change the wording to like the same up to gender justice and shall aim to be equal by the next General Council, just to make the wording simpler.
Did you capture that? Are they able on the screens to capture that? Can you just repeat that again so the people on the screen can capture it for us?
That the World Communion of Reformed Churches Executive Committee and senior staff should represent the Communion's commitment to gender justice and shall aim to be equal by the next General Council.
So are you actually then proposing that those words strive vigorously should go out?
Strive vigorously works too. That's the same.
All right. I don't think we're able to capture that on the screen from what I'm seeing in front of me. Can you just repeat it once more so they can catch it?
Okay, I'll stay with strive vigorously then. Shall strive vigorously to be equal by the next General Council.
Oh, so you're taking out at least and you want it to be equal?
Yeah.
Let's see how you respond to that suggestion. Indicate with your cards. Okay, I'm seeing a mixture of blues and orange on that. I think because of the mixture, it's going to be a bit difficult to move forward with that. Let's just see for further suggestions and then we can take it on. Is there any further suggestions? Yes, microphone number 1.
I'm Anedore Fenhaus from the La Plata Church in Argentina, Paraguay, and Uruguay, and I will speak in Spanish.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. President. En una situación así, en nuestra iglesia, si sentimos que estamos debatiendo para encontrar la formulación correcta sobre algo que en realidad todos estamos de acuerdo, diríamos que exhortamos a que el 50% sean mujeres y le pedimos al Comité Ejecutivo que busque las maneras de que esto sea posible y, en caso afirmativo, de implementarlo, sin decidir ahora algo que después quizás no sea posible hacer concreto. En concreto, entonces, propongo reformular esto y decir que la Asamblea afirma su intención o su deseo de que el 50% sean mujeres y pide al Comité Ejecutivo de buscar la manera de hacerlo en caso de que esto sea posible. Thank you.
Thank you. I think there's been several contributions in terms of how we improve this, and I really thank you for the contributions on that. I think notes have been taken. I'm going to refer this back for further consideration. So I'll postpone this at this point in time and ask the drafting committee to bring it back to us. Are we okay with this? Please indicate with your cards. Thank you. Yes.
Bethany Wynn, United Church of Christ delegate from the States. Prior to this last amendment, I think we pretty much had consensus with the strive vigorously phrasing, and I would just request that you get a sense if everybody is willing to move forward with that and then move on.
Well, I think they've heard and they've seen, and they will certainly capture those words in that. But I think it's just too many things that have come, and I think to properly construct a sentence as a proposal, we just got to give them time and space to do that properly. So it'll be the ideal thing just to postpone it for now and ask the drafting committee, after taking into consideration all of those things that have been said and what we have agreed on, will still remain. All right, are we in agreement with this? Thank you. Thank you.
The drafting committee will take that up.
Yeah,
Thank you. Now, let's move on to from the Women's Pre-Council section of your report. The first item there is the Communion's attention to gender justice. And there's a point A, that this General Council confess that violence against women in all its forms is sin. I'll read and then the next piece is the one that we have just been taking up, so let's not do that one. And then we go to number C, where it says that the WCRC join with its ecumenical partners in approaching the UN Commission on the Status of Women, urging a renewed dialogue and response to all forms of gender-based violence. And then there's the second point, the communion's attention to equal partnership, ordination of women. We will not take up the first point A because we did that yesterday, but what would be the next point is that the WCRC Executive Committee open a space of discernment with member churches that do not presently ordain women. They shall develop principles and an action plan by which the pledge of a declaration of faith on women's ordination will be realized prior to the next General Council in 2024. Some comments were submitted by the groups. First was to add "and children" to point 1A, and also the comment on that point that the statement about violence should include more than women. Point 1B, it's the timelines were questioned. We've already brought that back to the drafting committee. And then finally, on point 2B, some contexts use different words for ordination, and in future WCRC documents, the appropriate words should be used. There was support for broadening the concern about violence to more than a concern for women, while not wanting to diminish the sensitivity to the particular needs of women. Gender-based violence is recognized by women as speaking to their situation and is inclusive enough to broaden the area of concern in the proposal. The drafting team is taking up the suggestions of the discernment groups in a revised or an amended, changed proposal. Deletions are struck through and additions underlined. So the first point there, under the communion's attention to gender justice, is that this General Council confess that gender-based violence and then against women is deleted in all its forms is sin. I don't know if we could have that placed up on the screen.
All right, we're taking the first part of that proposal. It's on the screen. Could you indicate how you feel about that? I see one or two blue cards. Do you wish to speak? Yes, please. Microphone 2.
Thank you, Mr. President. Hilary Hagar, Presbyterian Church in Canada. I'm a delegate and I'll be speaking in English. I do agree with the proposal that is presented in front of us, but I would like to make an amendment to add "and discrimination" after violence so that section 1A reads that this General Council confess that gender-based violence and discrimination in all its forms is sin.
Okay, there's a suggestion in terms of changing. How do we respond to that? Please could you indicate? Add the words "and discrimination." There's consensus on that. Thank you. Now I put the full proposal again with the change. Please indicate how you feel about it. There is consensus, unanimous consensus on that. Thank you. You can move to the next point there.
Thank you. That would be what is on your papers as number C. That the WCRC join with its ecumenical partners in approaching the UN Commission on the Status of Women, urging a renewed dialogue and response to all forms of gender-based violence.
You know what now is before you. How do you feel about it? Please indicate with your cards. Thank you. There is unanimous consensus. Let's move on.
The next one is under number 2 on your papers. It is the communion's attention to equal partnership, ordination of women. That the WCRC Executive Committee open a space of discernment and offer accompaniment, educational materials, and guidance to member churches that do not presently ordain women. They shall develop principles and an action plan by which the pledge of a declaration of faith on women's ordination will be realized prior to the next General Council in 2024.
Right, the proposal is before us. indicate how you feel about it with your cards. I see one blue card on my far right. Do you wish to speak? Microphone number 1.
Hi, I'll be speaking in English. I'm Dana Allen. I am a delegate from a Covenant Order of Evangelical Presbyterians in the United States. I am very excited about our declaration of faith on women's ordination. My concern is, as I read this, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that this will require all of the churches in the communion to ordain women by 2024. I wonder, A, is that true? B, what would be the consequences if they didn't? Would they be removed from the communion? And so that's my question, and if the answers to those types of things are yes, then I would want to strike this last sentence. The reason being, I think the beautiful thing about being in a communion is that we can agree to disagree on certain things. We're in different judicatories. We personally validate and affirm women's ministry. My wife is ordained. I just wouldn't want to make all the communion member churches comply with that.
I'm going to ask the chairs of this particular group to make some notes and be able to respond. I'm just going to quickly take somebody from 4, and then you can respond, Dorcas. Number 4.
My name is Ini Ukbo, the Presbyterian Church of Nigeria. I'll speak in English. To solve the concern that has been raised by the last speaker, I think in the last sentence, we can change the word will to may.
All right. Thank you for that. Before I get a response to that, I'm just going to get an explanation. Thank you, Dorcas.
Thank you. I think that we go back to the declaration and the pledge that is made that this will be our common practice. And we recognize that there are churches that presently do not ordain women. And so for us, it was really important that there be a time for discernment. And it is a request that the WCRC work very closely with these churches to offer accompaniment, education materials, and guidance. But there was a sense that this could not go on forever if it was to be the pledge of our common practice. And so there was a desire to leave time so that a process could be entered into and carried through, but also a recognition that if this was our pledge, then that we needed to say something about a timeline in terms of when this would be realized.
Thank you, Dorcas, for that. Before us was a suggestion that we change the word will to may be realized. Let me see how you feel about that. I am seeing, right, I'm seeing a lot of blue actually. I think that's not going to go. So let's go back to the original. As it stands before us, not with that on the board, on the screen at the moment. Can you take out the word may? The people operating the screen. We're going back to the original. You wish to speak? Let me just test the original and then you can speak, right? Please indicate how you feel about the original proposal. Will be realized. Okay, I see a few blue cards. If you wish to speak, please go to a microphone number 2.
Trevor Gibbon from the Presbyterian Church in Ireland, a delegate speaking English. Mr. President, I think what we were told now means that any church who does not adopt the ordination by women cannot belong to this communion after 2024. And I would want to suggest that that runs contrary to our commitments we've already placed on our priority for communion together. My church ordained women. One of our women has served on the executive committee of this council for the last 7 years. But I would not want to see forced out of this communion those who are unable to adopt the ordination of women by 2024. And if that's what this means, I think that this resolution runs contrary to other resolutions we have passed and will pass later about our commitment to communion. This will divide communion if a small minority is driven out of this communion. I would also say that we have emphasised the need to protect minorities, to stand with the vulnerable. And if there are denominations in our communion that for their own reading of Scripture or for their own cultural circumstances cannot reach the point of ordination by women, we should not be putting down lines that could break communion.
You wish to speak to it, number 2? Okay.
Bill Thomas, United Church of Canada, speaking English, and I am a delegate. We are a communion that is committed to justice. The two go hand in hand. We, as a communion, a couple of days ago, adopted the Declaration of Faith on Women's Ordination. We have placed that as an important part of who we are and how we travel together. I think that if we are true to the adoption of that declaration, then at some point we need to have the communion. Justice cannot suffer in the name of communion. And if we are prepared to let one portion, one constituency within our communion suffer injustice in order to support communion, then I think we need to seriously question what we're about and who we are. And as we heard from a speaker, and I cannot remember her name, I apologize. When this is placed before a person or a communion, often we see transformation through the struggle of coming into agreement and living up to the declaration that we've made.
Okay, thank you. Now, how do we feel about this proposal as it stands? Please indicate with your cards. The proposal that stands is a proposal that is in front of us, will be realized prior to the next General Council in 2024. I see a few blue cards. Anybody wishes to speak from that? Yes, please. Yes, microphone number 4.
3.
Is that 3? Sorry, 3.
Thank you. I am Brooke Ayele from Ethiopian Evangelical Church Mekane Yesus. I speak English and I'm a delegate. As the previous speaker from Canada, my church also ordained women, but it took us a very long process to come to that conviction. For those who have not come to that conviction, to make a timeline of 7 years, I would say is inadequate, and it may be inappropriate for them to make it obligatory so that we are not able to accompany them in their own pace, in their own journey. So I agree with the other speaker who says this may be violating the communionist tenets for unity. So let's give time for others, and may will be much better expression that we work together.
Okay, I also like to encourage female voices in this conversation. Is there anyone standing up there? No? All right. You want to say something? The General Secretary wants to speak about something that is constitutional.
Just for the information of the General Council, I took it that the General Secretary of the Presbyterian Church of Ireland asked if the implication of passing this motion would be, in some sense, that people that did not, churches that did not ordain women by 2024, and I don't know if your word, Trevor, was automatically or effectively or by this action would be excluded from the communion. So I'd make just two informational points from the Constitution. One is that the process of suspension of membership is detailed in the Constitution and would not be any general categorical motion would not change the constitutional requirement that specific membership would have to be brought with a specific reason, and a long process of investigation and dialogue ensues. So that the constitutional processes of, as I read it, Mr. President, would to suspend any member's participation in the WCRC would have to follow constitutional norms. That's a clarification. And the other thing, just so the court is aware, or the General Council is aware, there's two mentions in Article 7 under the General Council in our Constitution. One is Section C, decisions of the General Council concerning its organization and institutional activities shall be binding. D goes on to say, decisions of the General Council involving the life and witness of the member churches are advisory in character. And what I see in this motion is that this implies both. It has things to do with our life as a communion together and as others. But I just wanted to say that there is a reference in the Constitution to the binding nature, and there is what is binding and what isn't, and there's also a reference in the Constitution to the process of suspension, and that this expression, that those constitutional provisions would still be in place as this is going forward.
Microphone number 2.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. I'm Peggy Mulambia Kabonde from the United Church of Zambia, and I'm a delegate. I'm just concerned by some men who are coming forward to comment on behalf of the so many women that sit in their pews. Women who feel called to the ministry of the word and sacrament. I would have loved for the women themselves, if they are here as delegates, from these churches whose men are speaking on their behalf, and they are asking for more time to be given to them to continue talking about the same thing when we agreed that we shall go together and we shall walk together, even as the faith of declaration was agreed upon. Thank you.
Microphone number 4.
Mr. President, Majid Abul from Pakistan, a delegate, and I'll speak in English. Presbyterian Church of Pakistan, we agreed to ordain women in 1992, and women pastors and elders. And we were trying, but there was so much resistance from the public, because pastor women are required to visit families every night. Their own families wouldn't allow them, and the families they were supposed to visit were not accepting. So it took us a long time, and I just want to celebrate and also share with the WCRC General Assembly that within 2 years, we have ordained 5 women, and also for the first time we have a woman president for the Presbyterian Theological Seminary, in Pakistan. But I also, well, thank you. I want to point out that this happened during my moderatorship, and it made life in certain ways hell for me. But leadership put its foot down, and I think that expediting can be a good effort, but to put a limit on it would create problem. We passed in '92 and took us time to now only last year we ordained first woman pastor. The communities in certain regions are not ready for that. Even if you ordain a woman, this will be more difficult life for her when she receives rejection from the people she's supposed to pastor.
Thank
so
you.
there are all that kind of problems.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Is there somebody else there? Yes, at number 4, you can please speak.
Yes.
You will be the last speaker on this.
Catherine Macmillan, Delegierte von der Gruppe aus der Schweiz, Reformierten Kirchen der Schweiz. I'm sorry, I'm speaking English.
Apparently.
Okay. Sorry. I want to say something to my brother from Northern Ireland, who is concerned that some churches might need more time to come to the conclusion that women could be ordained to the ministry. I just want to remind that in these churches, mostly men are making the decisions. So women will have to wait until men decide that it's okay to ordain women. In Switzerland, women were given the political vote in 1972. In Switzerland, women had to wait at least 100 years after they had started trying to get equal citizenship. And I saw in a museum posters of women saying, please, please let us vote. We'll be so nice to you. Please give us the vote. I don't think that's the way we need to do it in the Reformed Church. We're equal. We know that.
Right, friends. With all of that information and new voices, I want to test this again. The proposal stands in its original form, as on the screen. How do you feel about it? I see very few blue cards. We've had enough conversation time. For those of you who have blue, are you willing to give us consent to move on? Thank you. Thank you. If you're not willing to do that, you are free to record your dissent with the secretary who is taking down minutes of this conference or council. Thank you very much for that. Right, that brings us to an end for this session now. We'll consider the others at the next decision session. Thank you so much, Lisa. Thank you, Dorcas, for your work. We got to make an announcement, and then the people who are going to be leading us in the next session, please would you get ready to come forward, Ewan and the team. Announcement?
Yes. Hands, please. I mean, the organ. What's after me? Right.
Good afternoon. Announcement time. And it is my honor and my pleasure to introduce the two composers of the Psalm concert tonight. Because the Psalm concert tonight will be a world premiere. There was music written for this particular event, and I have the honor to introduce Kyung-Young Lee from Seoul in South Korea, and Kurt Meiring, a born Dutch living in Darmstadt. And they will very briefly invite you to the concert tonight.
Good afternoon. I'm very happy to be invited, or we are very happy to be invited to this event. Tonight, the concert itself will be like a psalm, because it contains always the complaint on the world, and then the, how do you call this, the praise, as an answer to that. And this is through the centuries. We start in 17th century text by Grimmelshausen, and it gets answered with music from the same time from Heinrich Schütz. So you will hear world premieres and also traditional music. Then we come to the 19th century with a slave story from America, and also composed by us and played by an ensemble with mezzo-soprano on one side of the church and answered by Mendelssohn, Wie der Hirsch schreit. And then Gonyong Lee is composing about the Gwangju massacre in the 20th century, and it gets answered by Leonard Bernstein. And then I compose a poem from Marc-Antoine Vumilia Mohindo. He was 10 years in Kabila's prison and escaped dressed as a woman and is now living in Asyl in Sweden, and gets answered by Psalm 150 by Gonyong Lee. So we have, through the history, the whole concert, always contemporary, answered by traditional music, and it's all about the wars in this world during these centuries. Gonyong Lee, please.
I'd like to add only some words to him in Korean, my mother tongue.
Korean is okay?
오세요. 꼭 오세요. 오시면 이 콘서트에서 여러 세계에 걸친 고통의 얘기들을 들을 수 있고 그리고 그것을 극복한 사람들의 찬양이 있습니다. 그리고 위로가 있을 거고요. 기쁨과 슬픔이 있을 거고, 제일 마지막에는 하느님께 드리는 숨쉬는 모든 것들아 야훼를 찬양하여라 하는 구절로 마칠 겁니다. 여러분 모두 할렐루야 아멘으로 화답하는 시간이 마련되어 있습니다. 꼭 오시기 바랍니다.
Thank you very much to both of you, and a warm invitation to the concert tonight. We will start at 7:30 at the St. Nicholas Church, and this is your ticket. There was some questions of whether you should buy a ticket. You don't have to. You are already taken care of. Thank you very much, both of you.
Thank you.
Very quickly, there is a group picture planned with all the participants of the General Council. And the picture will be taken on Thursday, directly after lunch. Please try to be there. And there is a choir forming for our closing communion on Friday, and the choir will meet tomorrow night after our return to Wittenberg at 8 o'clock in the evening here in the hall. I will say something about Wittenberg tomorrow later, because now we have to proceed immediately with our listening session on Korea. Unfortunately, there will be no coffee break, but I think if some people will sneak out to provide themselves with something, we are not too strict, are we? Thank you very much.
But don't encourage it. We now ask our Vice President Ewan to come and moderate the session on the focus on Korea.
I would like to ask our Korean friends to be ready to come up to the stage. And I will begin the introduction. Good afternoon. I'm Yue Wen-lu, Vice President of the World Communion of Reformed Churches. On behalf of Asia and Pacific region and a member from the Presbyterian churches in Taiwan. As a person from Asia and as a representative who came from the churches in this Northeast Asia region, it is my honor to be in charge of the opening greeting for the session that we are going to begin now. This session is for listening on Korea issue before to the public witness plenary. As to what my dear Korean friends constantly say, in any occasions that I have been honored to participate, Korea has been constantly confronting the power from the so-called empires that they impose in the region. Peace has been a long-term issue as well, a long-term issue for discussions among churches in Northeast Asia. However, peace-related issues are getting more and more critical in Africa, the Middle East, and the other parts of the world as well. Today, Korean issues have been an explosive potential to become a war in the region. We hope to listen and to share these core issues with all who are present here at the General Council. Therefore, we especially invite two panelists from Germany to the North and South delegation. All panels have working experiences for unity and reconciliation in the historical division of each country. By moving towards reunification, we hope to explore the accents and the options for Korea's peaceful solution through the wisdom of those in this panel. Their profiles will now be introduced briefly on the screen. The moderator will be Mimi Han from the National Council for Churches in Korea and YWCA. And Reverend Lee Jong-yo from the Korean Christian Federation from North Korea. Follow two friends from Germany, Paul Oppenheim and Lutz Dresser. Then followed by Reverend Lee Jae-chong from PROK and Reverend Lee Hong-jong from PCK. Mimi, now the panel is yours.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Hello. Yes, I know it's a very sleeping time, like a very dozing off time. I am excited to be joined by these distinguished panelists to discuss the important topics of bringing peace on Korean Peninsula. Unfortunately, due to the limited time, we only have a total of 30 minutes allocated for this listening session. Each question will be addressed a specific issue related to the topics of peace on the Korean Peninsula. I will then ask each panelist to provide concise explanation and propose possible solution related to this issue. I ask each panelist, please do limit your answer to 5 to 6 minutes. And when the time is up, I will let you know so that you can wrap up. Question 1 is about the issue of sanctions against North Korea. Reverend Lee Jong-no from North Korea Christian Federation, would you offer your own interpretation on international sanctions against North Korea and share your thoughts on a possible path forward regarding this issue?
존경하는 제리 필레이 회장님, 존경하는 버거슨 총석이님, 각국의 교회단체 대표들과 교우 여러분, 나는 이번 총회에서 각국 여러분들이 각별한 관심을 모으고 있는 조선반도 문제에 관한 회의에서 이처럼 발언하게 된 것을 기쁘게 생각하면서 최근 조선반도에 조성되고 있는 엄중한 정세와 그 발생 원인에 대한 교우 여러분들이 정확한 이해를 도모하고서 그에 대해 응원하고자 합니다. 교우 여러분들도 잘 알고 있는 바와 같이 조선반도에서 대개가 충돌의 악순환이 지속되고 있는지도 온 반세기 이상의 세월이 흘렀습니다. 미국은 자기 세계 지배 전략으로부터 조선반도 문제에 계속 간섭할 구실을 마련하기 위해 우리 공화국을 겨냥한 핵전쟁 연습과 제재 압살을 집요하게 강요하면서 조선반도 정세를 의도적으로 격화시키고 있습니다. 원래 강권과 전횡에 습관된 미국이 어떤 문제가 제기되면 상대가 누구든 관계없이 먼저 힘부터 휘두른다는 것은 오늘 온 세계가 다 아는 주지사실입니다. 바로 이런 힘의 논리에 기초한 시대착오적인 사고방식을 가지고 있는 미국이기에 저들이 강권과 전쟁에 굴복하지 않는 우리 공화국에 대한 그 체질적 거부감은 더욱 극심한 것입니다. 더욱이 지성학적으로 요충지로 되고 있는 조선반도에 위치하고 있는 우리 공화국이 위치하고 있는 것으로 해서 우리 공화국에 대한 미국의 지배 야욕은 국도에 이르고 있습니다. 이로부터 미국은 어떻게 해서나 우리 공화국을 무력으로 압살하고 지배하기 위해 해마다 키 리졸브 독수리 북침 합동 군사연습을 비롯한 각종 북침 군사연습들을 벌리며 조선반도 정세를 인위적으로 격화시키고 있습니다. 미국의 무분별한 북침 전제 소동은 이제는 지난 시기 한계를 훨씬 벗어나 올해는 4월 전쟁설까지 내돌며 온군 하나의 대규모 전쟁을 치르고도 남을 여러 개의 핵 항공모함 타격단들과 핵 잠수함, 핵 전략 폭격기들을 비롯한 방대한 핵 전략 자산들을 조선반도와 그 주변의 대대적으로 계속 들이미는 위험천만한 전쟁 도발 행위도 서슴지 않고 있습니다. 한편 미국은 우리 공화국을 경제적으로 완전히 질식시키기 위해 우리 합법적인 위성 발사와 자유적 대응 조치를 걸고들며 7차례의 각종 방공화국 제재 기회를 조작하며 국제 무대에서 방공화국 압살 분위기를 대대적으로 고취하고 있습니다. 미국이 우리 공화국에 가하고 있는 제재 소동 역시 인류사상 그 전례를 찾아볼 수 없는 반인류적인 것으로서 우리 정상적인 무역 활동은 물론 어린이들의 놀잇감까지 제재 항목에 포함시키고 우리와 경제 거래를 하는 다른 나라들에도 제2차 제재를 가하는 진로, 그 강도와 실행 수단, 그 적용 수법과 리행 기간에 있어서 가장 고약하고 끈질긴 방식으로 강행되고 있습니다. 재반 사실은 미국이야말로 자기의 지배 야욕 실현을 위해서는 국제법과 세계 평화, 인륜도 남북과 유린하는 교란자임을 실증해 주고 있습니다. 그러나 미국의 이 전대미문의 방공화국 압살 행위는 오히려 우리 인민의 불그리 우지와 자강력의 정신을 더욱 촉발시켜 경제 건설로서 세계를 놀려는 비약을 낳고 있으며 우리 공화국의 군사 전략적 지위는 날을 따라 비상이 높아지고 있습니다. 미 당국이 새로 내놓은 최대의 압박과 관여의 대조선 정책 역시 력대적으로 강행되고는 미국의 방공화국 적대 정책의 학대판으로서 우리보다 강력한 대응을 유발시켜 조선반도에서 긴장을 지속시키는 결과만을 초래시키고 될 것입니다. 그럼에도 불구하고 지금 미국이 마치 우리 자의적 대응 조치 때문에 조선반도 정세가 악화되고 있는 듯이 국제 여론을 오도하고 있는 것은 이처럼 우리를 국도로 자극시켜 긴장을 조장시킨 저들의 책임을 우리에게 전가시켜 저들의 평화 파괴 행위를 가리우고 우리 공화국을 기어코 압살하는 데 있습니다. 만일 우리가 전쟁 억제론을 갖추지 않았더라면 힘이 약한 나라와 민족만을 골라가며 무력으로 농락하는 미국의 강권 행위로 인해 이미 전쟁이 터져 조선반도는 참혹한 전쟁 동란에 빠져들었을 것입니다. 조선반도의 오늘의 선교 상황은 미국의 행포무도한 강권 행위를 저지시키지 않으면 정의롭고 평화로운 세계를 창출해내려는 하느님의 역사 섭리는 언제가도 실현될 수 없다는 것을 보여줍니다. 그러므로 하느님의 평화도구로 부름받은 우리 그리스도인들은 정의와 평화복음의 십자가를 더 높이 죽여들고 조선반도에서 긴장 격화의 악순환을 조장시키는 미국의 반공화국 대결 정책과 반인륜적인 제재를 배기하는 운동을 강범위 벌려나가야 할 것입니다. 북남 관계를 하루속히 개선하는 것은 조선반도에서 평화 통일으로 나아가는 출발점이며 우리 민족과 각국 그리스도 교인들의 한결같은 지향입니다. 현 시기 북남 관계를 근본적으로 개선해 나가자면 민족 자주의 입장에서 외세의 부당한 간섭과 압력을 배격하는 것입니다. 그러므로 북한남 해외 전체 교우들은 외세의 간섭과 압력을 배격하고 민족 자주의 원칙에서 북남 관계를 근본적으로 개선해 나가기 위한 성업에 적극 떨쳐 나서야 할 것입니다. 임마누엘 하느님께서 조선 통일 성업에 이바지해 나갈 지향과 우지로 충만된 우리를 평화의 길로 이끌어 주시기에 우리 그리스도 교인들이 우려한 조선 통일 운동은 하느님의 축복 속에 반드시 알찬 결실을 맺게 되리라고 굳게 확신합니다. 감사합니다.
Thank you, Reverend Lee. Well, number two question is related to the denuclearization of a Korean peninsula. The international community is increasingly advocating denuclearization of northern East Asia. German churches are one of the strong proponents of this position. Mr. Paul Oppenheim, would you be able to share your thoughts on this issue?
Thank you. In 1982, 35 years ago, in the midst of East-West confrontation, what we call the Cold War, the Reformed churches in West Germany called for a total ban of nuclear and other weapons of mass destruction. They created a confessional document called Faith in Jesus Christ and the Responsibility of the Church for Peace. I'll quote, "In the face of the threat for peace that comes from nuclear, chemical, biological, and also conventional weapons of mass destruction, we as churches have too often been silent and have not been witnesses of God's will. Now that the danger of nuclear war has become a probability, we recognize that the issue of peace is a faith issue. Through our attitude toward these weapons, we affirm or deny the gospel. We affirm that the state has the responsibility to protect law and order and the life of its citizens. Yet weapons of mass destruction annihilate what they pretend to protect. Therefore, on the basis of their faith in God, the Creator, the Reconciler and Savior, Christians can only say an unconditional no, a no without any hint of yes to arms of mass destruction. I hope that this statement of faith will one day be shared by our World Communion of Reformed Churches, and that we can agree that our goal is a world without nuclear armament. The threat of mass destruction does not increase security. Nuclear deterrence must be replaced by confidence-building measures. One essential confidence-building measure is the withdrawal of weapon systems, and this applies in particular to the very dangerous situation in Korea and Northeast Asia. In December of 2016, the United Nations voted on a historic resolution to launch negotiations for a treaty to prohibit, to ban nuclear weapons worldwide. These negotiations are taking place in New York at this very moment. And it would be a great opportunity for us to declare our support for the ban on nuclear weapons. South Korea voted against these talks. Also, the nuclear powers and the Western alliance of NATO voted against the negotiations to ban nuclear weapons. North Korea voted in favor. Denuclearization is not the first step, and attempts to force North Korea out of its nuclear program by pressure and sanctions will not be successful. What is needed now is a climate of trust
meetings between officials, symbolic gestures, confidence building through agreements on trade, family visits, agreements on telecommunication, lifting restrictions on visits and exchange of goods, and information between North and South. A patient policy of small steps that show goodwill and reduce the mutual threat of total destruction is now urgently needed.
Well, question number 3. So recently, in the response to the increasing threat on the Korean Peninsula, many ecumenical voices have raised concerns. Mr. Lutz Drescher, who is deeply involved with the Ecumenical Forum for Peace in Korean Peninsula, I would like to ask, what kind of steps should we be taking to bring a peace in Korea?
안녕하세요. Dear friends, probably all of us are aware that we are here in a part of Germany which 30 years ago has been Eastern Germany. Germany had been divided and is united, and that's why we are meeting here partly. And we are keenly aware of the incredible pain of the still divided Korean people and are ready to accompany the people in North and South Korea on their journey towards peace, reconciliation, peaceful coexistence, and God-willing unification. Every journey and every pilgrimage consists of many, many small steps. I will suggest some steps and talk about reconciliation, peaceful coexistence, and unification. First, Bible in 2 Corinthians 5 is talking about that the ministry of reconciliation is entrusted to us. But the situation in Korea is still so intense that people in North and South, and unfortunately the churches themselves, are still in the iron grip of Cold War consciousness. The wounds of the Korean War, in which literally in some cases brothers, offspring of one and the same womb, were fighting against each other, are far from being healed. I'm sure the worldwide church, we all can be helpful in promoting healing and in reminding Christians in both parts of the country that followers of Jesus are entrusted and empowered to implement the ministry of reconciliation. After his resurrection, Jesus used to greet his disciples by the simple words, "Peace be with you." And I ask you to repeat these words often and to add South and North, "Peace be with you and the people of the South. Peace be with you, the people in North Korea." Secondly, to achieve kind of a peaceful coexistence would already be a major step in an area which has the highest concentration of military in the world. But I'm not only talking about peaceful coexistence of the people in North and South Korea. Unfortunately, the population in South Korea is deeply divided in its attitude towards North Korea. This goes up to a point where it's nearly impossible to have a discussion about this subject. One major step would be to learn to accept difference and diversity in the South itself. Only if we accept difference and diversity, it will be possible that one day people in the South live together with people in the North, which have been living under such different circumstances for the last 70 years. But there is one political precondition for peaceful coexistence as well. This will be a kind of a non-aggression pact, or better, a peace treaty, which has to be signed by the US as well, simply because they have been so deeply involved in the Korean War and till today are perceived by our North Korean brothers and sisters as the main threat to their security. And the first immediate step could be that the US-South Korean joint military exercises are stopped, and a midterm goal would be the withdrawal of the American troops. Last but not least, a word about unification. I'm not talking about reunification, which could be misunderstood as an attempt to return to something which has existed in the past. No, unification should be a creative process in which something new comes into existence. It will not be an easy way and probably will have several stages. One might be a confederation, as a DPRK has suggested. The subject of this process of reuniting each other will be the people in North and South themselves without foreign interference. Dear friends, let us earnestly and fervently pray to God that we, together with our Korean brothers and sisters, become able to discern what the next steps should be. Let us pray that God Himself leads all our feet on the way to peace. Thank you.
Well, our panelist is doing great with the timing. Question number 4. Korea recently underwent the regime change through its peaceful candlelight protest movement, which is shown yesterday in the morning session. These kind of civilian activism could help to generate de facto unification in Korean Peninsula. Reverend Lee Jae-chun, would you be able to share your views on this issue?
As you see, I'm one of 5 male panelists. Mr. Drescher, you mentioned many small steps. The world witnessed a great historic achievement that the small steps made during the last winter in Korea. It was people's candlelight revolution. It's non-violence, peaceful, but far from being weak. It was effective enough to change the regime. This miracle started from only a handful of flickering candles on a weekend last November, growing into the gathering of millions of people. The candlelights were neither blown out nor dwindled down for 21 consecutive weekends, even under severe cold of winter. The candlelight revolution was a fruit of spontaneous movement staged by voluntary participants. It was also a people's festival where anyone could speak, sing, and dance together. It was a people's way of sentencing a judgment upon a corrupted and incompetent government, which refused to listen to people's cry for justice. People's candlelight revolution succeeded in the impeachment of the previous president and the election of the new president. The candlelight revolution offered a sign of hope for the peaceful reunification of Korea, achieved not so much by big powers, that is, power of the empires, as by people's power. The candlelight revolution was a clear proclamation of the power of self-determination of the people. It demonstrated a possibility of direct democracy as an alternative political system, which could be envisioned as an alternative to the malfunctioning indirect democracy in the contemporary global context that has degenerated into bureaucratic and authoritarian democracy. From candlelight revolution, we rediscovered the prophetic potential of the people for the transformation of the society. We also experienced people's consensus building process for peaceful social change. These valuable historical experiences and lessons can and should be applied to our approach to the peaceful reunification. It was in 1988 the Korean churches, along with the worldwide partner churches, officially declared for the first time that in every step of its discussion process to plan for reunification, the full democratic participation of all the people must be guaranteed. Korean churches, together with the civil societies, have long been actively engaging in the various activities for reunification. During the two previous conservative regimes, however, the relation between the South and the North in Korean Peninsula became frozen, and all the achievements were nullified to our grave disappointment. The candlelight revolution has changed the political climate. It reignited our hope for the full democratic participation of all the people. Under the new regime, the churches in Korea, which is essentially people's faith movement, could make active contributions to advancing de facto unification. The most important first step for de facto reunification should be people from two Koreas sitting together face to face for the genuine human communication as brothers and sisters, just like here and now. I end with Lee Jong-no from North Korea. I'd like to express a deep gratitude to the Reformed churches and the worldwide churches for the prayer, the accompaniment, and the engagement in this long journey for peace and reunification of Korean Peninsula. Thank you.
Now, for the last, we touched upon the 4 important related issues to the peace on the Korean Peninsula. We hope and pray that this panel serves as a starting point to the further and deeper discussions on peace in the Korean Peninsula. Now, Reverend Lee Hong-jung, I'd like to ask you and share your overview thoughts on the prospect and the peace and hope and solidarity for Korean Peninsula.
Friends, peace be with you. Peace be with you. Peace be with you. Critically reflecting on 72-year-long history of division and its root causes, we, the Korean churches, prophetically denounce the division of Korean Peninsula as the original sin of the Korean nation. The 1945 division was the most reckless compromise between the USA and the former Soviet Union on the basis of the short-term tactical expediency for the hegemonies of the superpowers rather than the long-term strategic vision for the suffering people. It embodies the most painful remnant of the ignominious ideological political turbulence of the Cold War. In the course of fulfilling the liberation within the Cold War lively frame, the Korean people have suffered from the tragedy of the 3-year Korean War and its collective post-traumatic stress disorder. The Korean War ceased only with the Armistice Treaty in 1953, fixing the Cold War-driven division structure into the Korean Peninsula. Division is a paradigmatic reaction in violation of the divine covenant. Division is a structural sin against God, humanity, and nature. Division is in contradiction to God's will for the fullness of life for all. However, if we see the history of the Korean people from a perspective of the whole story of God's salvific action and the what God for the world, the division of the Korean Peninsula is not the end of the history. Contrarily, division is an omega point of spring up, all the will of renewal and transformation in which God's people are called to engage in healing, reconciliation, and peaceful unification of the Korean Peninsula. In such a phase setting, we dare to dream. One day the people of North and South will transform the heavily militarized demilitarized zone from an invincible division war to a balanceable cell membrane by cultivating it into a permanent eco-peace zone. We dare to dream further. One day the children of North and South, growing up together in peace, will faithfully expand this permanently demilitarized eco-peace zone to the whole Korean Peninsula, to the whole Northeast Asia, and to the whole world, envisioning a division-free, arms-free, nuclear-free oikumene. We dare to dream continuously. One day the people of North and South will cultivate a people-centric, life-enhancing geo-economic environment of the Northeast Asia, establishing the special economic zones and connecting them by the Eurasian railroad transportation system running through the DMZ. For the above dreams come true, we have the mandatory dream. In coming years, the people of God in North and South, along with the peacemaking churches in the world, will lead a prophetic pilgrimage for transforming the Armistice Agreement into a peace treaty, converting the Armistice system into a peace system, and normalizing the relations between North and USA, North and Japan, and eventually North and South. This will enhance the Northeast Asian people's common security for life. We, the life-affirming communion, have to assure the sustainable development for the North, advocating the international societies to lift up all the existing sanctions against the North, which victimize the innocent people, the women and children. We, the peacemaking communion, have to advocate both North and South government and their allied superpowers to halt all military exercises, any kind of brinkmanship on and around the Korean Peninsula, any kind of mutual demonizing against each other, and to withdraw foreign troops according to the circumstance, mandating the UN Security Council to initiate a new peace-building process across the Korean Peninsula. The peace treaty will promote a consensual process for denuclearizing the Korean Peninsula and constructing the nuclear-free Northeast Asian oikumene, which will definitely include the USA. Dear participants of the 26th General Council, we, the communion of the people of God, cannot compromise our faith in Jesus Christ with any attempt to make any kind of war, particularly apocalyptic nuclear war, which totally destroys God's faith as seen in the faces of people and nature. We, the people of God in North and South, therefore desperately implore your compassionate Eucharistic solidarity for overcoming the division of the Korean Peninsula. We, the healing and reconciling communion, may mutually offer our Eucharistic solidarity based on the mutual trust, willingly taking the risk of believing in one another. Being filled with hope and new purpose for the prophet Ezekiel's vision of being associated as one nation, we pray, O living God, renew and transform the people of North and South from the victim of the division into the new creation of the Jubilee in which the truth reigns. Amen.
All the North Korea and South Korea delegates, please come up. We will have a very brief ceremony, just for 3 minutes. We will be, while the song, we're going to be sing together, Ososo, which means the Lord of the Peace. Please come up upon us, and then please come up to the stage. As you can see, we are wearing this colorful store. It's called Sekdong. This is the first birthday. Children wears this Sekdong chagori, which is Korean traditional color. And this color symbolizes the celebration of life and also unity in diversity. And also the cross is united. The music, please. 음악이 나오네. Thank you, everyone, for your attention and your dedication, devotion to be a peacemaker. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for your presentation. On the next session, we have to move to public witness plenary, and I will ask Jerry to come up stage, and also the moderator for the public witness plenary, Robina Winbush. Thank you.
Thank you, Ewan. We have very limited time, as you can see, but we are going to go into a listening session just for 30 minutes. We will break promptly at 5:30 for your dinner because you have to travel again to town. So I'm wanting to invite the Public Witness Committee Chair, Robina Winbush, and the scribe perhaps, to come forward and lead us. We will try to listen for the next 30 minutes on what is possibly able to be presented. Yeah, whilst it's happening, that's good.
While the Public Witness Committee is coming up, just some short announcements with regard to the Wittenberg Day. And they are much, 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 much simpler than Berlin. And we are so happy about it that the chaos potential is limited and I hope almost under control. We start all together, not at the hotels, but here at the tram station in front of the Messe. So please come to the Messe. The buses start leaving at 7:30. So please be here at 7:30. We follow the following system. The buses arrive, people go in, the bus departs, and the next bus will come. So we will fill up one bus after the other. And I ask particularly everyone who has responsibilities in the worship tomorrow, please make sure that you are on the first bus. And that will make sure that you will arrive in Wittenberg in time that we can actually do the preparations. That is the one thing. We will immediately be brought to Wittenberg. We will enter the church. We will have the worship there. Afterwards, we will be served lunch in front of the church. And unlike Berlin, the weather forecast is fine. So they promise some 8 hours of sun tomorrow. So we will enjoy the sun. And afterwards, we will be going, if you want, you can visit the Reformation World Exhibition. There are young volunteers that will give us an introduction. We will give you tickets that you can move around freely. And at 4:30, we ask you to come back to the bus parking lot and we will start departing here to the Messe, and you will receive a packaged dinner that you will be able to enjoy either outside here at the lake or on your way to town or whatever you want to do tomorrow night. That's the program. I think it's not too difficult. Thank you very much for the technical people to showing the details also to the screen. Thank you very much. I'm sorry for that.
Thank you, Robina.
Thank you, President. Beloved family, on behalf of the Public Witness Committee, I am pleased to present you the first part of our report. I would like to share with you briefly our process. We received close to 30 proposals for us to speak to issues of concern to our churches. We held hearings, and a committee of 10 persons actively worked through these proposals to present to you the report that you have. I would like to take a moment to thank our staff person, Mungi Kim and Ryan Smith, and the stewards who gave us unending help. I also would like to say and note a word of an apology that we were able to have translated the proposals that are before you, but we were not able to have translated all of the narratives. We have been told that the translation team will complete this process and will get it to us as soon as possible. Presenting this report with me will be the scribe of public witness, Ian Alexander. Jürgen Moltmann warned that a concern for the victims of injustice was lacking at the center of Reformation theology. We pray for forgiveness of us. Forgive us our sins, but where are the victims of our sinful action? Moltmann asked, the first issue is not the penitence of the perpetrators, but the pain of the victims. German federal President Frank-Walter Steinmeier appealed to us to demonstrate the peacemaking role of faith at a time when religious beliefs are misused to justify violence. Now more than ever, the Reformed churches must make particular efforts to foster peaceful dialogue and to very consciously underline the power of religion to promote peace and reconciliation. The General Council has opportunity to claim the heritage of our Reformation and have the audacity to raise up those who have been trodden down by both church and society over the decades and centuries, and to remind us all of the importance of hearing the voices of those who have been most disenfranchised by the dominant economic and ecclesiastical models, and offer opportunities for people to be able to stand upright and realize fullness of life. It is important for the General Council to hear the voices of those who are sharing their pain and seek ways to respond. This is what the Public Witness Committee has sought to do. Through paper presentations and hearings with the proposers, we have sought to bring to the General Council the voices of those who want their concerns to be heard, that we might all respond, and through our combined prayer and action, offer some hope of the freedoms which have been part of the very history and fabric of our faith, and for all to join in sharing the great offer of freedom our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ offers. Our first issue, migration, human trafficking, and refugees. Human trafficking has been identified as a modern form of slavery. Human traffickers take advantage of people in vulnerable situations, including many thousands of children every year. It is an injustice that affects millions of people every year on every continent and at all socioeconomic levels. It is also a direct effect on the physical, mental, and spiritual well-being of the victims. During the initial trafficking, victims are often forced and deceived. People may be trafficked for labor and sexual exploitation within an individual country or across international borders. Their movement is often restricted, their personal documentation withheld, and they may experience significant physical, emotional, sexual, and psychological abuse, including being killed for their organs. Victims are often held in indentured slavery, which prevents them from escaping. The movement of hundreds of thousands of refugees has highlighted a situation that confronts the churches. Women, men, young and old, are fleeing war and poverty and persecution. Every day, people put their lives at risk as they seek life, peace, and justice. As Reformed Christian churches proclaiming the gospel of Jesus Christ and a vision of life in fullness for all, we cannot and will not accept this as inevitable. The people seeking refuge are not merely an ethical or political challenge confronting the church. They challenge our churches in their innermost theological identity and mission. In faithful accordance with the biblical witness, its calling and mission, The Reformed Church has a long-standing tradition of being committed to the life, dignity, and well-being of the refugee and migrant. As people of faith, we are called to love the sojourner and to treat the foreigner residing among you as your native-born. Issues of human migration do not exist in a vacuum, and they can only be fully comprehended when we understand how they connect to other issues of justice around the world that are of critical importance to WCRC member churches. These stories and motifs have had profound effects on the history of the church, especially the Reformed tradition, as many early reformers were themselves refugees. Reformed communities around the world were created not only by missionaries, but by migrants as well. Therefore, we offer the following 4 proposals to the General Council. 1, the General Council condemns all acts of human trafficking, asks all member churches to do likewise, recommends member churches engage with the WCRC program Broken for You, and urges member churches to hold their government to account in countering human trafficking. Number 2, recognizing that the situation of migrants, refugees, and asylum seekers requires close cooperation and a common response by churches in all parts of the world, encourages the Executive Committee, working in cooperation with its regions, member churches, and other bodies, to find ways to analyze what happens to migrants, refugees, and asylum seekers in the countries they leave, pass through, and settle in. To consider the theological, spiritual, and pastoral challenges confronting member churches. To find common answer to the question of how we deal with one another as human beings and people of faith in this situation. And to consider how together we may address governments, media, and people in our countries so that all that is necessary is done and people receive the help they need and deserve as our fellow human beings. 3, urges member churches to hold their government to account in supporting migrants. 4, urges all member churches to support affirmative action policies and programs to create opportunities for migrant workers, refugees, and trafficked people. Mr. President, we present these proposals to the General Council.
Thank you for that, Robina. What I'm going to suggest we do, because this is going to go to the discernment groups, so what we'll have you to do rather is to read through it, and at the end we'll actually suggest that we receive it and send it to the discernment groups.
Okay. So you want me to continue? Number 2, uprooted and displaced people in Mauritius. The General Council received information from its member church in Mauritius that the Chagosians of Diego Garcia, relocated to the island since 1966, face 20 more years of unsettled livelihood on the island of Mauritius. The extension was done without the consent of the government of Mauritius, but strictly on a bilateral agreement between the United States of America and the United Kingdom, just as they unilaterally decided to turn the home of Chagosians into a military base of the USA and force the latter to relocate to the Seychelles and Mauritius, whose culture is alien to them. Since then, the relocated Chagosians of about 1,000 encountered familiar issues of subsistence living, uncertain employment, and living as unwelcome residents among unfamiliar cultures, languages, and customs. Many continue to live with the trauma of unemployment and stigmatism. The government of Mauritius has refused to accept the extension of the agreement between the UK and the USA. It is contesting the agreement even as it continues to bear the brunt of physical and spiritual costs of serving as a temporary home to the Chagosians. The proposal that we place before you: that the General Council encourages the Secretariat and member churches to support the multi-level humanitarian efforts of the Mauritian Church on behalf of the Chagosians living in Mauritius. 2, instruct the Executive Committee to organize in cooperation with member churches and other ecumenical partners a pastoral delegation to Mauritius to demonstrate support for the work of the Presbyterian Church in Mauritius and other churches in supporting displaced people. I will now invite my colleague Ian to come forward and lead us through recommendations 3 and 4. Thanks.
Number 3, treatment of Christians globally. The Public Witness Committee heard concerns from Middle East, Africa, and some European countries, and Southeast Asia of the treatment of Christians. Nigeria has a population of about 180 million people. The north is predominantly Muslim, while the south is predominantly Christian. Sharia law exists in some parts of the north. Some recent government and group actions have exacerbated fears of a calculated attempt to impose an Islamic agenda on the whole nation, including the Christian minorities in the north. And the proposal, the General Council instructs the Executive Committee and Secretariat, with support from member churches and regional bodies and other ecumenical bodies, to establish a framework for peaceful coexistence and the protection of the rights of minorities. 2, instructs the Executive Committee and Secretariat to work with member churches and regional bodies in heightening global awareness of the persecution of Christians, including asking for government and UN action where necessary. 3, urges member churches to offer support to the victims of the ongoing activities of insurgents in Nigeria, particularly as it affects women and children in IDP camps and in the rebuilding of devastated communities. And 4, urges member churches to offer support for rebuilding churches in Nigeria when destroyed by governments or other groups. Number 4, on Korea. A WCRC delegation visiting the Democratic People's Republic of Korea and the Republic of Korea in September 2016 heard the urgent wish for the de-escalation of provocation and tension, the need to re-establish dialogue, negotiations, and the desire to change the armistice into a peace treaty. The visit took place in the context of the long-standing commitment of the WCRC, the World Council of Churches, and the wider ecumenical movement to be in contact with Christians in North Korea and to advocate for the peaceful reunification of the Korean Peninsula. The presence of the Korean Christian Federation, which hosted the visit, was much appreciated. The most recent geopolitical developments are extremely alarming, for there has emerged imminent dangers of the use of thermonuclear weapons in the Korean Peninsula, which could bring about the total destruction of all living beings, possibly affecting the whole world. The National Council of Churches in Korea has been leading a prophetic pilgrimage to transform the armistice into a peace treaty and to normalize relations between the Democratic People's Republic of Korea and the Republic of Korea, the USA, and Japan. A peace treaty will promote a consensual process for denuclearizing the Korean Peninsula and constructing the nuclear-free Northeast Asian oikumene, including USA. Confidence-building measures are essential prior to the normalizations of relations. For example, the lifting of the existing sanctions against the DPRK, the cessation of all military exercises, and any kind of brinkmanship on and around the Korean Peninsula, and the withdrawal of foreign troops according to the mandate of the UN Security Council. So the proposal is that the General Council instructs the Executive Committee and Secretariat convening a Northeast Asia Ecumenical Peace Convocation to weave various initiatives of the global, regional and national ecumenical councils to design an ecumenical accompaniment process for healing, reconciliation and peaceful reunification of the Korean Peninsula from 2017 to 25. 2. Agrees that WCRC shall join in the Peace Treaty campaign movement as one of the programmes of the above ecumenical accompaniment process. And 3. Instructs the Executive Committee and Secretariat to highlight the Korean Peninsula in its programmes on justice and peace in order to actualise efficiently the above plans, developing a common vision of peace in Northeast Asia as well as that of the world.
If I may draw your attention, for those of you who have English copies, back to the third paragraph of item 4. On the 7th line, or the second line from the bottom. When the Public Witness Committee met this afternoon, we deleted one phrase because we felt it was already cared for, but it was not deleted in the written copy, so I would ask that you would delete it. And that is the phrase nuclear missile test. So the sentence would read, the cessation of all military exercises and any kind of brinkmanship on and around the Korean Peninsula. Thank you. I would ask that you turn your attention to item 5. And this was a proposal that came to us from a caucus. It was not from one particular church, but it was a caucus made up of 30 delegates from 10 countries in Africa, East Asia, the Middle East, North America, and Latin America. Palestine, an urgent issue of faith for the world communion. People of many religions suffer persecution, but Christians in the Middle East are currently particularly severely affected. This year marks 70 years since the creation of the State of Israel, and the General Council can reaffirm its commitment to justice, peace, and security for the Israeli people and state. The creation of the State of Israel had a significant consequence: the loss of homeland for 750,000 Palestinians. It is also 50 years since the 1967 Israeli occupation of the West Bank, Gaza, and East Jerusalem, and 100 years since the Balfour Declaration promised a home for the Jewish people, as well as promising to respect the rights of the indigenous communities living there. As Israel celebrates its birthday, the second part of the Balfour Promise has not been implemented. It is time, it was. It is time for Israelis and Palestinians to live alongside each other in peace, security, and justice. In an open letter to the ecumenical movement published on June 21, 2017, the National Coalition of Christian Organizations in Palestine has called the situation on the verge of catastrophic collapse, declaring that this is the last chance to achieve a just peace and to save the Christian presence in this land. They have appealed to the world for costly solidarity with them to end their oppression and gain their freedom. Through solidarity visits, reviewing theology, economic actions, and support for their freedom to exercise their religious, social, and political rights. Many of us have seen with our eyes and heard with our ears the painful realities of life in Palestine. We have been witnesses to the daily grinding humiliation of women, men, and children, the deaths of civilians, the demolition of homes, the confiscation of water resources, the isolation and ongoing diminution of the Palestinian population of Jerusalem, severe restrictions on freedom of movement, education, commerce, and access to holy places, the unlawful practice of administrative detention, including of children, and the taking of land through the construction of illegal settlements and a separation wall built on Palestinian land. Palestinians who live in the State of Israel, while citizens with the obligations of citizenship, also suffer injustice through discriminatory policies in housing, employment, and more. The reconfiguration of Jerusalem, in particular, jeopardizes the historical place and shared identity of Jerusalem, which is part of its holiness. We acknowledge and confess that the Christian faith has been used to justify the injustice against the Palestinian people. Any use of the Bible to legitimize or support political options and positions that are based upon injustice imposed by one person on another or by one people on another strip the Word of God of its holiness, its universality, and truth. All who suffer share in the groaning of the Holy Spirit for the liberation of all peoples and their joining in one spiritual communion. The ongoing condition of occupation and the continuing denial of Palestinian rights as cast a shadow over generations of Jewish Israelis who have borne the social, psychological, and spiritual burdens of the role of occupier. Therefore, we offer these proposals. The General Council, 1, affirms that with respect to the situation of injustice and suffering that exist in Palestine and the cry of this Palestinian Christian community, that the integrity of Christian faith and praxis is at stake. 2, instructs the General Secretary to initiate a program to collect studies and materials that speak to the cry of the Palestinian people and make them available to member churches. Undertake study and discernment, using resources available from member churches and the ecumenical movement regarding theology that has been employed to legitimate the oppression of the Palestinian people, recognizing that such a study might result in the need for prophetic action and a call for processus confessiones. 3, instructs the Executive Committee with the Secretariat to respond before the end of 2017 to the letter of June 21st from the National Coalition of Christian Organizations in Palestine, indicating what actions can be taken in response to their cry for costly solidarity. Encourages member churches, 4, encourages member churches to examine their mission, education, and investment relationships with Israel and Palestine in light of the witness of Palestinian Christians and to respond as they understand the Reformed Communion's fundamental commitments to human rights and the protection of international law. 5, instructs the Executive Committee to encourage and support with practical help from member churches delegations to visit the region to connect with present-day Christian community, the living stones of the Holy Land, to witness their situation and express support for their desires for freedom and self-determination. Number 6, violence against individuals based on sexual orientation and gender identity. In the global struggle toward freedom to pursue God's vision of wholeness of life for all, progress is being achieved in some areas of the world. Yet death and acts of death continue to loom. Homosexuality is still illegal in 72 countries and punishable by death penalty in 13 countries, implemented in at least 8. Trans and gender diverse people face extreme violence, with 2,343 being reported murdered in 69 countries since 2008. Last year was the deadliest year on record for transgendered people in the United States, with 27 homicides reported, nearly all racialized women. In Brazil, one LGBT person is murdered every 25 hours. Killings, violence, and oppression are routine in many parts of the world. The United Nations has called on the international community to confess the issue of anti-gay violence and discrimination. Scripture is clear and repetitive in conveying God's vision of and invitation to partnership in the ushering in of abundant life. As partners and stewards with God in co-creation, as agents and stewards of Jesus' promise of abundant life, choosing life and seeking life abundant for all is central to our witness to the gospel of Jesus Christ. The WCRC recognizes the connection between spiritual health and wholeness with the systems in which our lives operate and are ordered. When the weak, oppressed, and marginalized among us suffered diminished life, we do not go unaffected. Seeking abundant life for others is inextricably tied to our own experience and quality of life. While we may not be of one mind on the topic of human sexualities, we are all united by the waters of baptism and the table which Jesus hosts in our commitment to pursue God's call for a life abundant for all with courage, boldness, and a deep faithfulness. Therefore, we make the following proposals. The General Council, 1, condemns all acts of violence against LGBTQ persons around the globe. 2, confesses its complicity in supporting violence through its silence. 3, commits to speaking about human sexualities rather than using the term human sexuality, recognizing the diversity and the continuum of sexual expression. 4, continues to commit itself to work for justice, freedom, and a safe world for all persons to flourish. Mr. President, item 7, I would ask, be stricken from this version of our report. It will come again to us in a finalized form in part 2. This completes the first part of the Public Witness Committee report.
Thank you, Robina. As you can see, this is a very involved piece of work and it requires a lot of time. We are using the discernment model in terms of how we process this, which means it will be going to the discernment groups tomorrow. At this stage, what I will ask is that we receive the report for what we have received now, and it minuses number 7, of course. Right. As we indicate that this be accepted and referred to the discernment groups, the report be received and sent down to the discernment groups, please indicate by show of hands. All right. Those who disagree? Okay. It goes down to the discernment groups, and tomorrow we will take it further. Now, not tomorrow, sorry, on Thursday. Tomorrow is a day out in Wittenberg. On Thursday, we'll pick it up, and certainly we will have discussions on this as we go along. I think we will now stop at this point and go for dinner and then move on to town. Thank you. God bless you. Oh, was it there? No? He's busy.
Yeah. Sorry, is Cesar Garcia here? Okay. Thank you. We were just, yeah. Hang John.
Yeah, that's it. So I'm to see